We're now going to move to the Sub-Saharan Africa's leading integrated energy group and now invite their group chief executive, Adewale Tinubu, group chief executive for Wanando PLC, for his presentation.
Distinguished Minister, ladies and gentlemen, fellow colleagues, I'm supposed to speak today about infrastructure as a catalyst for growth in the emerging markets. Now, last year I spoke in general about strategies for winning in the oil industry, because as my colleague and Deputy CEO said today when he arrived, Guyana or Bridgetown looks exactly like one of our major oil towns called Warri in Nigeria 30 years ago, where it's bristling with excitement, bristling with a lot of drive, a lot of enthusiasm, and the production has been launched. The barrels have started to flow. There's a lot of excitement as to what we all can do together, and the whole idea is to be a wise country and a wise industry, which means you learn from other people's mistakes as opposed to learning from your mistakes. And so we do have quite a few experiences where we've succeeded, and certainly where Nigeria has failed in its evolution. One key aspect is that Nigeria has a very large private sector indigenous participation in the industry. We currently produce, as an industry, about 400,000 barrels a day and about 1 billion standard cubic feet of gas. And we expect in the next 3 years to be achieving close to 1 million barrels a day over the next couple as a result of the ongoing divestment of some of the majors from the offshore fields as they focus on the international fields. There's sustained oil and gas demand. Oil and gas demand today is about 103 million barrels a day, so effectively it's growing 1 to 3% per annum. So the point was made earlier on that even though everybody's talking about hydrocarbons being reduced and renewables being the next factor, the issue is that hydrocarbons are so well established that it's going to be tough to reduce the demand in the near term. And in reality, the point was made earlier on that a reduction in demand, and that demand really should come from the developing countries who are really the major polluters in the world, as opposed to the developing economies that need to export and produce these resources to succeed. So it's a plus that even if we end up in a situation wherein some trade-offs need to be done, the carbon credits will lie with countries like Guyana, because at the end of the day, you're not an emitter, okay? You are effectively on the receiving side. Emerging markets is the key. 700 million people lack electricity products or energy products, concentrated primarily in Africa and Asia, and a lot of few Caribbean islands have huge energy deficits, and so there's going to be opportunities there. There's also a capital gap. Financing is not really available, and I'm really happy that we're opening up the Guyanese market to include public-private sector in terms of phase 2. One of the key things we did in Nigeria was build a West African gas pipeline. And so our 2 to 3 billion cubic feet per day of gas that is generated and produced, first things first, we do 27 million tons, which gets shipped out via the LNG. But then there's a very large local gas demand, primarily for power, and then thereafter for process, for fertilizer and urea, which is exported out of Nigeria. Majority of the exports actually come to South America. Brazil is one of the largest buyers of Nigerian fertilizer. So Guyana is well positioned to be able to capture that market, being able to aggregate regional demand and provide infrastructure, for example, the port, which would need to be built in order to take advantage of the trade. We've had the benefit of extensive local participation in our oil industry, and we have major projects owned by us. So for example, a 650,000 barrel a day refinery built at the cost of $20 billion has been built in Nigeria by Africa's richest guy, a guy who's worth about $25 billion. Now, in terms of us as a company, we've been involved in a whole range of substantial infrastructure projects. So we have the Okpai Power Plant, which is a 900 megawatt power plant. So Rwanda is a joint venture partner in this project. We have 40% in this project as the operator of the Oando Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation joint venture. We are the operator of that. And we have two power plants, 2 times 450 megawatts, which we operate in Nigeria. And that accounts for about 18% of the electricity in the country. The OBOB gas plant is a 1.5 billion capacity gas processing plant. So effectively, the ExxonMobil gentleman mentioned that the new FPSOs will have a total processing capacity of 1.2 billion cubic feet. So that plant processes what all the ships currently combined do. We built a midstream jetty to save $200 million a year in demurrage costs because we had ships coming into the port, and as the country developed, these ports were designed in shallow drafted locations, and we incurred a lot of money lightering large vessels before they came into port. And we were able to come with a solution to build a midstream jetty, which is 2 kilometers length in the deepest part of the channel. It cost us $150 million to build, and we saved the country $200 million annually, indefinitely, as a result of this construction. We built a local distribution gas pipeline in Nigeria, in Lagos in particular. We built 3 now. But the first one we built was quite interesting. We didn't have a framework, so we sat with the government and said, we want to distribute gas, we want to build a local distribution pipeline. We want to take all the industries in Lagos, which is 60% of the industrial capacity, off using dirty fuel, low-power fuel for their power requirements. And the government liked the idea, and we were able to do a joint venture wherein we designed a framework, designed the laws were passed around the framework, and we were able to commence the construction of a pipeline system where we built the first 7 kilometers. We tied up about 10, 15 industries, then built another 40 kilometers, tied up another 50, 60 industries, and effectively we were able to build 150 kilometers, taking gas from where ExxonMobil, for example, the equivalent where they made landfall with their pipeline, we teed off from that as a local company and built a gas pipeline that went equivalent all the way around Bridgetown, which is what we did in Lagos. And we were able to have 150 industries switch onto that gas pipeline. And that pipeline indirectly generated over 1,000 megawatts of power for industries who then use that gas for process. And so a lot of companies saw their costs drop dramatically, and a lot of indigenous companies were able to build factories using the cheap gas and the cheap power cost to use it as a competitive advantage to do other things. We did projects, for example, like reduce the cost of water in the cities by building power plants using our gas to reduce the reticulation cost, because water was being recirculated around the city using heavy diesel or heavy fuel or for old power plants. The point being that you can impact the society with the indigenous companies by building sub-projects which help you take the benefit of the resource which is being done, because the majors will do the big things, but then the medium-sized projects are really reliant on the smaller-sized companies who can actively do that.